On introductions, Daniel, would you like to introduce yourself to everyone who's on the call today?
Sure. So first of all, happy Thursday. A little rainy here in the northern part of the state. I'm actually excited that our panelists all come from the northern part of the state to talk about apprenticeship and workforce development, which is an important topic across the state. And we're celebrating here Youth Apprenticeship Week, which is exciting. And the leaders on this call are really driving some of the work that's happening. And we're excited to be able to get kind of the word out and hopefully promote and get more employers looking at this for the future. So Daniel Sirota, Kristen already mentioned, my day job is Vice President of Government and Public Affairs for Aon. I sit in Libertyville, Illinois, Sue, so right near you in Waukegan, as an employer. And, you know, part of my journey started when Aon kind of began its apprenticeships work in 2016, looking into the community college space and saying, do we really need a four-year degree or can we hire elsewhere? We started doing that, hiring 25 per year at City Colleges of Chicago, as well as the College of Lake County. And, you know, we've continued to grow and expand. And part of my mission is to get more employers to think differently about their hiring practices. And youth apprenticeship is a great way to being able to do that. I'm going to throw it over to Laz. Laz, do you want to just give a little bit about yourself and your youth apprenticeship journey?
Sure. Nope. Love to. Thank you, Dan. Thanks everybody for joining us. So I've been fortunate. I wear several hats in the state. And in that role, as I've worked on both policy to support education and workforce and that connection point, I've been able to implement locally here in the northwest suburbs. We have about 12,000 high school students, a really extensive portfolio of work-based learning experiences. Youth apprenticeship is a significant part of that. We have now to date with this newest cohort have over 150 students participating with about 12 to 15 different occupations and employer partners. We have half of our students are female, half are male, 40% come from students of poverty, 18% are students that have an IEP or 504. So it really is a breadth of experiences for a breadth of students. We've done this work locally here to ensure that students don't have to choose between their future and earning a living today and helping their families support themselves, so that students can graduate from high school really ready for the world from a career perspective as opposed to just a job. So we start very early on helping students develop these pathways. And so I look forward to answering more and talking more in depth about how this proposition works. But I'm certainly excited to be here and to promote this work across our state.
Thanks, Laz. Jennifer, do you want to dig in around Lake County?
Thank you, Daniel. Thank you, everybody, for being here today. As I was introduced, Jennifer Serino, Executive Director for Workforce Development in Lake County. Workforce Development in Lake County receives the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act grant funding. We deliver the programs throughout Lake County. We operate the Job Center. And we also have our workforce board in Lake County that oversees our operations, our budget, our policy, our strategies. We have taken a very deep dive into youth work-based learning in Lake County. We work with our high school districts throughout Lake County. We work with community-based organizations. We work with our community college. Our focus is to bring the young person into a workplace to gain skills, experience, and to have access to a quality career pathway, which leads to quality jobs. We start at a very early age in Lake County. We're fortunate to have a county board that supports a summer youth employment and training program. And then we bring it all the way through high school graduation with innovative solutions based on the young person, based on the high school, based on the career path. And then we also feed it into youth beyond graduation to continue with specific industries in Lake County. I look forward to sharing more information as we go through the questions and answers.
Thanks, Jennifer. Sue, as an employer, do you want to talk about how you got into the youth apprenticeship game?
Sure. My name is Sue Dixon. I'm the owner of Kloss Tire and Auto. I started my journey back in 2017 by attending my first advisory board meeting and realizing the opportunities that the tech campus at Lake County provide. So with that being said, and being in the automotive industry, we have a skilled labor shortage or technician shortage. So I got a grassroots group together in Lake County of other shop owners, and I developed a robust work-based learning initiative to collaborate education with industry to grow our next workforce. What does that look like? We're looking at just simplifying some of the things that happen during our day, kind of integrating that with the student, and take work-based learning to a different spot where we are showing them a career path. We are utilizing YAW funds. We partnered with Lake County Workforce Development. So we have a very good relationship there. And we've grown in the past 7 years to 35 different automotive shops in the area that participate in our program. And now we're into all the other career pathways over at the tech campus.
Thank you. Thank you for that, Sue. And it's phenomenal that you jumped into this space and also build it with others to join in, right? And really grow it across Lake County. I'm actually going to throw you the first question, and then, we'll go around the horn, because as an employer, I think anytime you're bringing in young people and making that part of your strategy, there may be some misconceptions. Can you just talk a little bit about what some of those misconceptions are from your point of view?
Sure. When we first got this group together and we talked about bringing a student into the atmosphere of automotive repair, one of the biggest concerns is the workman's comp and issues regarding liability. So we needed to tackle that first before we moved on to other issues. And that's bringing a high school student in. Are they really work ready? Do they have the work ethic to come into our space? Some business partners think they're getting a startup employee, and it's not a trainee. So that was another conversation we had as a group. Bringing a student in, it slows our production. It slows our profitability down. So why should we partner with education? What is the benefit? We're losing our ROI, return on investment, but we look at it as ROE, return on effort, right? We're going to get that back because we've made the effort to make that connection. So does a student bring in problems, when it comes into the workplace? So we kind of tackled some of that. And the other really important thing is curriculum in line with what industry needs? So it's kind of a checkpoint, Charlie, right? Is what are you teaching our students, and does that align with what we need in industry?
Awesome. And Jennifer, from your perception, any misconceptions that you would like to add on?
There's misconceptions that young people don't want to work. And that they come with additional problems, as Sue mentioned. As part of our strategy in Lake County, we recently brought together youth listening sessions. So we heard from 71 youth over a month period and asked them that question. And they all said they want to work. They want hands-on work. They want to be in the workplace, and they want to learn. And they learn better when they have a caring adult that is mentoring them. And so that's what they're looking for. Employers often hesitate that it's going to add to their workload, but a well-constructed expectation plan and knowing that we're there to assist the young person with skills and not so much technical skills and meaningful experience. Once we get over that with the employer, they really do have a great buy-in, and they sustain their workplace environment to welcome more youth.
And Laws, based off 214, you've been doing this for a while and, been engaged from that side. Would be curious, just anything else you would add on. I think both of those misconceptions are very, very true and somewhat not true, to a point that, the time commitment standpoint, and then the liability conversation has always been an interesting one in this space,
Yeah.
and we hear it more in manufacturing and some of those others where there's the hands-on engagement there. Would be interested in your perspective, and then really, from your side of it, what type of time commitment has also been part of this dialogue, as youth apprenticeship continues to go through?
Yeah, so I would build on certainly Sue's comments and it's this idea that the value proposition is a one-way street, meaning that the employer is just the one giving. The truth of the matter is the feedback we get from our employers is this significant impact this young person has made on the culture and energy, and even on their own employees, that it sort of gets them excited because they're working with this young person and they see themselves as contributing. The other piece that I would say from a value proposition is the value proposition to economic development locally. Employers need a talent pipeline. And if you partner with schools to inform that curriculum Sue mentioned, to ensure that it's aligned, you are actually investing in the future potential of your community, because typically about 80% of the people that go to your students that go to your high schools are going to stay in your community or more. And so you investing in those individuals is investing in actually the future of your community. And so there's a significant value proposition. As far as time, I would say one of the other misconceptions is that students are walking in the door with nothing. Certainly in our model and the state, the way the education system has been restructured is along these pathways. So students in our programs, we've partnered with Triton College, where students are, before they step foot, we partner with a Ford dealership here nearby. They have already taken quite a few ASC courses and been certified in some of the basic functions in ASC before they step foot. And so you're not really getting someone that is coming with nothing of value. They have taken 3 to 4 years. They've been in the shop. They've gotten some certifications. And so it would be typical of a new onboarding employee that you would invest in, but their value comes back to you during that experience. That's what we hear from our employers.
And Sue, from your perspective as an employer, how does the time work with school and work and everything else in regards to this?
We really integrate a very simplified model because we don't want the student there the entire day. So we integrate that work-based learning experience when they're supposed to be at school for their 2 hours or 2+ hours for the tech campus. So we're getting the student in bite-sized pieces, so that does not disrupt the profitability of the day or the flow. I agree with Mr. Lopez, Dr. Lopez, in the value that you get when that student comes in is unbelievable, but you have to get that pipeline started, right? Once you get this pipeline started and you get that student in, it does change the dynamic of your day, right? It changes the dynamic of the company, the space, the employees, the customers. I mean, it does bring a lot of different things to the table, but it's getting that relationship started with an employer to kind of segue the benefits of it, that the benefits outweigh the what's happening during the day, right? You want to bring them in, right? So it's that stepping stone. I guess I'm kind of tripping over my own words here, but there is a ton of benefit.
Well, and look, Sue, I also think too, and Dr. Lopez brought this up, the localization of hiring people, right? And making them where they're staying, committed to the community, but also committed to your organization, and retention and making sure people stay long-term is a key thing. And Jennifer, from a Lake County perspective, right, you have an employer here that's looking at youth local hiring and, thinking about this from the long term. If an employer did want to get started or wanted to get further engaged, what is the time commitment and how long does it take to then build this up? And then from your perspective, Jennifer, where do you guys sit into the pie as kind of a partner?
So thank you. A couple of things, just following up with Sue and what Dr. Lopez says. So the community, right? So it's a community effort. It's working with the school within the community. And what's been wonderful in working with Sue and the way that she's approached it, we're bringing the employers around into the community. So when a high school is located in this area, Sue has helped made that connection to the small business in that area, right? So we're also addressing that transportation issue that we have throughout the area. So making it convenient and removing that barrier for the young person to get to the workplace, but then growing the community and creating that community, as Dr. Lopez says, economic value as a whole. Some of the ideas that we've worked with different employers throughout is there's times that we bring the project into the school for work-based learning, right? So they're working on a project from an employer, and an employer poses a problem, a group of young people, high school students in the program work on that work-based project while they're in school. So they're learning hands-on while they're in school, and that creates a trusting relationship with the employer. So then the next step is developing that workplace experience and setting them up in that workplace experience. And that's a relationship. Again, you're building that expectation training plan. You're not throwing hours you're not throwing more than 20 hours in a week, typically 10 hours with the high school student to get started, and building that. And part of the goal is to have that student return. So maybe a summer internship where it has more hours, and then maybe returning next summer. So as we know, when the employer is investing in the talent, the young person, the high school student's going to return there, even when they go beyond, if they're going into post-secondary education, they're going to know that relationship and continue to return, and you're growing your own talent that way. Some of the work we do with the high schools is help identify those employers, and we call them the zones, right? Within your zones. And looking at various employers from different industry. Lake County, very much high demand industry with manufacturing. So making that connection, we talk about liability. So how do we do some hands-on training in the office, or how do we do some job shadowing? So being very customized to the need of the young person and the need of the employer, and helping the employer realize everything is of value. So creating that value statement with the employer and the student, that this is a value, and about 75%, 80% is what we call the soft skills training. Showing up, listening, being part of a team, responding to your boss, working certain hours, right? So a lot of that work goes into building it up front, making the student aware, and then the employer has a plan, a training plan of expectations.
Hey, Daniel, I wanted to
Yep.
just pose a question. Sue brought this up initially around workman's comp and liability, and I know that is the #1 barrier.
Yep.
Here locally, I've addressed it in the context that when a student is in a work-based learning experience, apprenticeship or otherwise, it goes on their school schedule. And by it going on their school schedule, that place of business becomes an extension of the classroom. And so we cover liability as a high school district. However, in addition to that, the employer who's hiring the person, that individual is also considered, they go through the same hiring process, they interview the students and onboard them in the same manner. I'm curious how, Sue, how you've managed that within your consortium and how you're addressing workman's comp and liability.
Well, when we first had this conversation with our 10 group, which was 10 shop owners that basically developed this program that we're working with, we went to the local tech campus and opposed that. And as long as we had all the paperwork in place, we understood that it would be covered under the umbrella of the school. The problem that you're having is the conversation with education and business or industry is that it's always been a one-way street. And ever since the pandemic, we have kind of fallen off because we're scrambling just to make profits for the week, right? So we're not thinking about anything but that. And then to partner with education, there's so many things that hoops that we have to jump through to partner with you initially, right? So it's like that simplification of how can you make that collaboration easier for the business partner to understand. It should be understood that this is not an issue at all.
And laws, from your perspective, and thinking about it as part of the education side, if you had to describe maybe 3 or 4 benefits of being able to get this started, what would you say those are from your POV?
Okay, so from a school district,
Yep.
here's what I would say. So there was a time period where people started questioning, which they are now in higher ed, sort of the value of a high school diploma. And when we engage in this work broadly, our goal was to ensure that a student who graduated from our high school district had a value proposition that was beyond just simply you've met these state graduation requirements, that they were graduating having already identified some career area of interest, which is sort of why our tagline is discover your future, that they have had access. Our entire academic programming has been restructured around opportunities to go through sequence of pathways, and that they've had some kind of work-based learning that helps them affirm a career choice that also helps them make better decisions about their post-secondary outcomes. So the benefits of this is there is a significant difference between a student thinking and going through our coursework and engineering, for example, Project Lead the Way, which is a great program, and thinking they want to be a mechanical engineer, as opposed to going through the coursework and doing all the experiences and then getting to an employer during their senior year, whether it's an apprenticeship or a broader work-based learning experience, and realize, oh, wow, this isn't really what I want to do. And instead of mechanical, I want to do electrical, or I want to do this other aspect. And so the value for public high schools, it is the last time that you get sort of this free experience. And the value is for you to fully investigate to help realize sort of your purpose and your drive to help you make better decisions about your future so that it leads to economic mobility.
And Sue, from what you have thus far, right, through your program, what would you say is, from the employer standpoint, like 4 benefits today that you're seeing, that you see as kind of a long-term opportunity with this untapped talent, right? That you probably, that not a lot of employers are really digging in yet, but then how do we get them to turn from your side of the benefits? Like, where do you see that?
Well, you get to grow your own culture, right? You get to train them in the fashion that you need to, or the culture that you have, right? The retention is a huge piece of that. The opportunity that we afford somebody to come in, and my tagline is, will you donate 10 hours to a local student? And we give them 10 hours in the experience of, automotive repair. They might not want that automotive repair. Maybe they want automotive collision, right? So then we can move them over to collision and say, okay, you can have 10 hours here, and see if that's a good fit. So I think giving the student the opportunity to see these different career pathways in small bits and pieces, they make better choices. And once they make that choice, they're a little bit, indebted to you, or they feel that you're directing them or helping them to find that career pathway. And then we invest money, moving forward into that relationship, because in our world, you need tools and you need continuing education, and we can direct them and give them those tools in order to, be a certified ASC technician quicker than just throwing things out, right? So we're molding them and we're moving them forward in our industry, whether it's for our own benefit or the benefit of our industry, because we are in a situation where skilled labor is suffering.
No question there. And Jennifer, from your perspective, kind of what would you say are some of the bigger benefits that you see from across the board here?
So we talk about changing the narrative. So when employers are opening their doors in the community to young people, that community is thriving. That community recognizes that and they talk about that. So if that employer is giving back to a young person, that's where individuals are going into job candidates, right? That becomes an employer of choice for job candidates in our system. So we change the narrative there. This is a community effort. We work with the marginalized communities. We're growing the economic prosperity of marginalized communities. It changes the narrative for other employers as well. There is nothing more rewarding than having a workforce board member raise his hand or her hand and say, I want a young person in my place. I want to understand what it means to bring an intern in. So we're growing the pool of employers that way. And then, from a workforce development perspective, we rely on grant funds, we rely on foundations to support this. So the more we have with employers engaging and across various industries, again, changing the narrative. It's a project, it's a program, it's an initiative that works. How do we invest more in that? And so our workforce board has actually reinvested some of the funds into work-based learning, into pre-apprenticeship, and then we've sought out additional grant funds to grow the program as well.
Thanks, Jennifer, for that, which is phenomenal. And look, the more employers that are getting further engaged and thinking differently about their hiring practices for the future, it's only going to make the community stronger, and it's also going to help us grow. So exciting to see as a Lake County resident that is part of your mission, and kind of looking at it from that lens, I think is phenomenal. Dr. Lopez, it would be interesting in part of like the training, right? So when you think about the teachers and you think about the people and the partnership you have there, can you talk a little bit about the training side of how to prepare that student for that next lens?
Yeah.
As it kind of goes through? And Sue, from your, adding on to that, when it comes to you, Sue, from receiving it from the school, right, and how that partnership works, I think is an important part of this conversation.
So on our end, we certainly value these relationships. So we do have requirements and expectations of our students who apply for apprentices. We probably get 100 to 150 students that initially apply. We go through an extensive screening process and interview. Part of it is just to ensure that the student recognizes the level of commitment and time. So this really is, for both parents and these students, a different way to experience high school, particularly for us during the end of junior year, that summer and senior year, because it's a 12 to 18 month experience. And so they need to be ready. So like if they're in sports, if they're in activities, sometimes it does influence their ability, or if their course load is particularly rigorous, it could challenge that. So there are a number of students that actually self-select out after they fully understand the cost particularly on their time. The other thing is that they go through a regular interview process. We have a student coach at each of our high schools who is meeting and prepping and helping the students do their best to represent their best self. And our employers are interviewing these candidates just like they would any other employee, because they are hiring and onboarding them. And so it has to be a good fit for that organization as well. I would also say is we interview and screen our employers for a good fit. So for example, we have a student, Emily Son, who is an apprentice at Demji in Elk Grove. She was our first female manufacturing apprentice. We sought out a female-led manufacturer in order to ensure she had the best chance of being successful. And that leadership there and that organization was really excited and committed to ensuring she was, and that leader was as mentoring and supporting that student. I want you to know, Emily has done such an outstanding job. She got her forklift operator license as soon as she turned 18 during the apprentice. She got that forklift operator. She's been in all aspects of that business. She also redesigned their entire lighting system on the shop floor. She did the research and made the recommendations that they implemented. And now she's graduating high school. And this is a bright girl with lots of opportunities. She's an AP Cal, and she's going to start full-time with that company this
Wow.
summer as soon as she graduates. I mean, that is an investment, and she's opened the door for the next female manufacturing apprentice at that same firm. And so there is a lot of pre-screening and a lot of work and a lot of partnership, but it's also a match, which is part of the challenge for school districts to engage in this work. It is real work. It is high touch, highly intensive matchmaking, ensuring it's the right fit for both sides.
And Sue, from your perspective, the engagement you have with the school and part of the training, and then I would also be interested in kind of with the people that are working with the individual apprentices, how has that process gone? And have they gotten the experience, meaning the employees that currently work in your company? I would think from my perspective and kind of how I see it from an Aon side, it's mentoring the next future, right? It's bringing those people into your company to train for the future there. So Sue, I'd be interested in your perspective.
Well, when I'm looking at everything that we do, because it's not just my shop, we're talking about 35 other shops in the county that are taking interns in, and we're experiencing how we can grow them. And a lot of it has to do with, you have to have good communication with either the teacher or the career pathways coordinator. There's got to be a lot of dialogue as to what their directives are, what their structure is. But when we pull them in, we're looking at very simplified tasks that we kind of encounter for the first 10 hours. We sit down after 10 hours, we see if it's a match. So if I like the student likes me, this is the career path that they see, then we grow from that point, right? We extend their work-based learning experience from February all the way to May. Then in May, we talk to them about summer employment. We talk about workforce development, different grants that are available. Do they qualify? So now we're working closely with the schools and with workforce development, developing that ecosystem, right? So it's fully encompassed when you can have all three partners, when you have education, industry, and workforce development, right? To get that flow going. And then you look at education. Is it going to be a community college? Are they going to, a private organization? How can we help that student make that decision come May, June into where they're going? And then we look at, just certifications within our own industry. We send them to different places to get ASC certifications or classes. We just had one where we had 25 students take the ASC Break 5 course over at Lake County Tech Campus, getting them ready, job ready for the ASC. So I think, when we look at how we partner and the different touch points that we need to have in place to be successful, you have to have a good communication with education, good industry partners, and then good relationship with workforce development, because they're looking at our needs and they're trying to help us with that pipeline. And if you can understand all three of that points, then you can grow and you can benefit by retaining, attracting, and growing your future workforce.
I mean, that's phenomenal. Communication is definitely key with all stakeholders for success. So I appreciate you saying that, Sue. And Jennifer, from a workforce development standpoint in Lake County, I'd be interested in kind of, you've seen multiple examples across the state and in Lake County that are doing this well. Where do you see kind of the training and the communication that Sue has talked about really shine up, right? Sue's example is great, but I'd be interested if you have other examples based off other industries in Lake County where you're seeing the success here.
So first I have to say Sue is being very humble. The work I have experienced with Sue and education and industry has been phenomenal. And what we have learned from that partnership has influenced the way that we work in this space with young people and employers. Sue and the teacher at the tech campus have been recognized nationally for the work they've done in this space. And what I take, a lot of that is, as Sue has said, simplifying it and making it relevant to the employer and the student at the same time. So being able to communicate that with industry and using that language with industry, any industry, is phenomenal. We have a program, again, using this type of model. We have a program with another high school. And what they have done is, again, identifying the zone. Who are the employers in the area for the young people, these industries? What are the work-based products they can bring into the classroom? And then where can they be placed in a short-term training program on the job with that employer? So one thing that Sue has done, as the teacher at Tech Campus has done, is looking for that champion, and Dr. Lopez mentioned this, that champion in the high school that's going to be walking along this with you to get it done. We have, I mentioned manufacturing. Actually, our workforce board chair is HR director at Laser Precision, and this is what they've done. They brought in young people, high school students over the years, to get exposed to their work and how they do their work and what they need to learn, and then linking them to the community college for the next step. So even bringing the community college into the workplace to help the young person understand what they're going to learn as their next step. So manufacturing's big there. Also in healthcare, we've built that pathway. We've worked with Rosalind Franklin University to build a pathway of CNAs. So identifying high school students interested in CNAs, putting them through a training program during the summer with the community college, and having them get workplace experience through exposure with mentors that are medical students at Rosalind Franklin while they're going through that phase. And then leading into, once they graduate high school, they're prepared to go on to college for their BSN, and then they're coming back to Rosalind Franklin for their master's in nursing. So, and all that time, the caring adult is a medical student walking alongside them, and they're getting workplace experiences within the hospitals, the Lake County Health Department, and long-term care facilities. So making that connection along the way with them.
Awesome. Thank you, Jennifer, for that. And Laz, I saw you put in the chat a little bit about the types of, what grade and students you usually bring in as part of this. Do you want to talk about that a little bit further, about kind of how the youth apprenticeship journey begins?
Sure, and I think I also want to broaden the context as to what our role as high schools are, which is different and distinct. And so really, I was just addressing sort of, age does matter. If your student turns 18, we purposely designed our system that this is something a student is applying for during their junior year, going through the screening process, so that the onboarding and orientations are happening sort of in the spring of junior year, and they're starting the summer after their junior year and entering into senior year. Students typically, not always, but often are turning 18 during that time. And so it could be that a student starts in some aspects, particularly in areas where there's hazardous work, some aspects of the work that expands as they turn 18. So for example, Emily, who was able to be get her forklift operator certification during the apprenticeship as soon as she turned 18. But I do want to sort of to level set the concept and what our goal is at high school. So I can tell you, as a high school superintendent, my goal is not to be a college. My goal is to increase the likelihood of our students to transition into a career so we lift their aspirations. And I am trying to get them into an entry level of a career. And then my hope is that I am facilitating the transition to the local community college or technical program and the employer who's going to carry them on, whether they're funding their continuing education, whether they're, for us, a success might be that they just transition straight to the college to get their credential that they need, perhaps in that specific field. Maybe it's getting the ASN in nursing, or if they're going to get their degree in manufacturing, whatever that may be. But our goal is to create this sort of momentum effect. So they've gotten a little bit of early college credit. They've got some work experience. They've created a network of people like Sue that are excited about them, and they're encouraging these students and helping them pursue this future, because we all need, those cheerleaders on our sides telling us we can do it, and mentoring us both formally and informally. And so I think that's important. I think there's this huge opportunity in our state for us to develop this and get kids started while they're in high school and hand off into a fully developed system in our community college system. And I think there's a huge opportunity there for us to transition, because we do have apprenticeships across our state at our community colleges. And when we talk about youth apprenticeships, we're focused on in-school youth right now in this conversation. But when we're talking about youth, it really is from 16 to 21, according to the focus at the federal level, sometimes to 24, depending on how we're defining it. And so I just wanted to broaden that perspective of what the role of this is. It's all of us coming together to help a student engage in their future.
Thanks for that. And Laz, I might just throw you an additional question with that, just from your perspective. And Jennifer, this might be an add-on to you. And I know we've talked about this before, which is funding. So where is there funding opportunities for employers to being able to get engaged in with this? What have you seen based off some of your employer partners? And then Jennifer, would be interested from your perspective via WIOA and others of opportunities there. But Laz, do you want to start on that?
Yeah, I think probably Jennifer and Sue could probably answer the employer side better than I can. What I will share is the difference in working with the high school and our model design is I am covering all of the related technical instruction, all of the RTI. So that is not an expense for an employer when I partner with them. The only expense of the employer is the salary for the student, with escalating wages within the experience. That is the expense. As far as funding on the education side, I am able to leverage either our title dollars. I'm able to leverage CTEI and Perkins funding for educators that are knowledgeable of that. Those are some federal funding streams that all school districts have access to provide support. I also have some title money that I can use to pay for the tuition at the community college if the student's there, or if we have dual credit and there's costs related to that. The greatest cost actually associated that I have to pay is transportation. Transportation is the #1 barrier to all of this work. Many of the students don't have their own vehicles, don't have access to public transportation, particularly in this part of the state that is accessible. And Uber is really not an option if you're under 18. I can't legally, utilize that. I think there's opportunities to change that. There are some states that have created sort of an Uber type program that's appropriate for students under the age of 18. And so those are all sort of resources we can use.
Jennifer, do you want to add on the funding side from what you're seeing from that perspective?
So we're fortunate in Lake County, so we're able to what you call braid all funding together. So we do make some of our WIOA Title I funds available. What we're paying in that space is the wages for the young people as they're working. So the high school is taking care of all of the other expenses, wages and transportation, to Dr. Lopez's point. That's what we're supporting with WIOA dollars. We also, as I mentioned, we have funding from our county to support a summer youth program, which gets high school students engaged into the workplace. And when we talk summer youth program, we pay the wages there. It's across all industries. We have found great success in having our county departments create access to young people, getting the experience, public works, treasurer's office, communications, IT. So we're looking at industry starting it in a very young age there. Then we also have a group of foundations in Lake County that really look to the high school and how they can bring value into the high school. And I know the tech campus of Lake County does really well in braiding the funding with that. So the funding received from foundations will be used again to pay the wages, the training wages for the young people. And then we have multiple community-based organizations that access state and federal funds that add to that as well. So it's the coordination among all involved parties figuring out what's the best use of the funding to fund the wages for the individuals, and for the most part, everybody else is taking care of the other funds. Sue and their program also have a fun way to add some sustainability. If you want to talk about that, Sue.
Yeah, like, well, first of all, like we started our program with the Give Me 10. So it's a 10-hour type program. And then we moved to the Tech 50, which actually is a paid internship through the Gorder Foundation, a private foundation. So that way our students can get that career pathways endorsement of 60 hours of work-based learning. So we've kind of laid that out. But we also have a raffle car. 3 years ago, I had one car donated to the automotive repair. So the juniors do steering, suspension, and brakes. The seniors do engine repair. It goes over to collision. That car travels to all the different internship sites in Lake County to bring the conversation about what the students can do, what our industry is in need of. And we sell tickets for $10. That car, the first year made over 10,000. The second car made, I think it was 11,000. And this year we just drew the winner, and we're $12,000 on a 2013 Lincoln MKZ. So what that does is it makes us fully funded. We take that money and we donate it to our tool grant scholarship fund. So 4 students got over $3,000 worth of free tools to get them started in our industry. And then we also give that money back to Mother's Trust to help students who cannot go to or afford to go to Tech Campus. It pays their way.
Thank you,
So there-
Sue, for that. It's phenomenal, the work you're doing in this space, and continuing to amplify the message. And thank you for being here. And I do want to make sure we do have time. We have about 9 minutes left. If anybody wants to answer some questions or throw some questions, you can get off mute, turn on your video and ask, or put it in the chat. But I do want to make sure we do open it up around Youth Apprenticeship Week. Does anybody have any questions they want to throw in?
So if nobody wants to ask, I would like to ask.
Love
So, Dr. Lopez, Jennifer, Sue, you all have different perspectives. From your perspective, what's the hardest thing to solve for with youth apprenticeship from either the school, the LWIA, or the business?
So I
Dr.
would say,
Lopez, you want to go first? Oh, go ahead.
yeah, I would say just transportation. Transportation. I spend more on transportation than I do on anything else related to this work. I am talking about, like, I am cabbing students individually to their work sites, sometimes daily, and it adds up significantly. There are some states that have adopted programs like Hop, Skip, Jump, where it's basically, or Hop, Skip, I think it's called, where basically it's an Uber system, but they're doing background checks, and it's typically parents in a community, and they're driving kids, but it's sort of a closed app, and just for the students in that district or in that part of their region. Transportation is, because if a student can't get there, then they can't participate.
Jennifer, what would you say your perspective is on this?
It's having the right message, believe it or not, the right messaging into the industry to recruit the employers. It has to keep changing, right, to keep up, and we need to stay ahead of it. So it is creating that single right message to employers and being consistent with that.
Sue, anything you would add?
I just think, the message needs to be simplified to the business owner to engage with, to revisit education. I think we've gotten so far away from it, especially in skilled labor, that it's hard to get people to an advisory meeting, much less take an intern in, right? I mean, so the conversation needs to kind of change. And a lot of people don't know what career and technical education is, because a lot of people are like, well, where's voc ed? well, what happened to that? So I think the communication of how VOC-Ed has changed to career and technical education and the opportunities need to be laid out so business and industry understands it better.
Thanks, Jennifer, for the question. Does anybody else have any questions in the chat? Okay.
If
Go
no
ahead.
more, I did want to ask Jennifer, you said you did a focus group with those students and that sounded phenomenal. Do you all have like a brief you wrote or like a report or something you could share?
We will be sharing that in June. We have another session that we're doing. We're doing it with the disconnected youth, and then we're bringing our business members from our board together with young people for a listening
I
session.
love that. That's
Awesome.
phenomenal.
Yeah.
So if there's no more questions, I may, if we could do a round robin, and maybe I'm going to start with Jennifer. You're next on my screen next to me. What would you want to leave? What would you want the people that are here today to leave with, knowing about youth apprenticeship and how to get engaged?
Oh, that Sue Dixon is awesome. And a gem, right? So it is working with employers like that to get the message out and to grow it. So how do we have more employers like Sue?
Laz, what would you want people to leave with?
That particularly for employers, that you don't have to start with the level of commitment that a full apprenticeship requires. You can start with smaller experiences. That's what I heard Sue talking about. A briefer internship. Maybe it's, for us, we have a 30-hour experience, a 60-hour experience, that you can sort of dip your toe and develop your capacity internally to have a student. It's also a way that students are able to dip their toe into the experiences. Emily, the student I've been speaking of, started with internships in manufacturing before she fully committed to this year-long, about 750-hour work experience at the local manufacturer.
And Sue, as an employer, what would you want folks to leave with?
I want everybody to revisit the relationship with education. And I also really feel strongly about workforce development. A lot of employers don't understand it. They need to visit that space, get a hold of their local workforce development to develop a relationship, because it's a benefit to everybody. It's a benefit.
Thanks for that. And one of the things I'll close with, in my view, is the future of work is always going to be coming. And I think if you're starting the journey early and getting engaged and reaching out to folks like Jennifer and Dr. Lopez in your community that are really driving what the future of workforce may look like, I think apprenticeship will be a part of it. And to start, take that journey and take that opportunity to start getting engaged. Local, I think, is so critical in workforce development, of really starting to keep individuals into those communities, but really just thinking differently about how you hire, innovate, really bring in a new flavor and a new type of person into your workforce, and you'll see the ROI pay out, and you'll also see it long-term. And, I'm really excited and happy we did this panel today, because I do think the future is bright in youth apprenticeship. I do think there is that opportunity to partner with a local school that really can start amplifying this and really creating a pathway for students, which is so critical. So to close, I want to say thank you to Jennifer, Dr. Lopez, and Sue for all your work in this space. As Kristen did mention in the beginning, this will be a recording that we will send out. The continual promotion around youth apprenticeship, the messaging is so critical for us to get the word out. You can find more information on apprenticeshipillinois.com to really learn more about how to get engaged, reach out to an apprentice specialist in your community, but really also just learn from other employers and really learn from kind of the different opportunities that may be out there in your industry and sector. So I thank everybody for taking the time on a Thursday. I will give 2 minutes back for folks to get to their next 9 o'clock meeting, and look forward to hearing from you soon. So thanks everybody for joining. Thank you.